Okay, joining me on the line now is Stephen K Amos, who is coming to the Warwick Arts Centre, and more specifically the Goose Nest Theatre, which of course is new here at the university, on the 18th of January. Stephen K Amos, first things first, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Not bad at all. Absolutely freezing, though, as I'm sure everybody else is.
Yeah, it's very, very cold.
Yes, I had just driven back from Liverpool last night in amongst hailstones and wind and treacherous rain. But,
Goodness.
still made it.
That's impressive. Now, Stephen, you were at the Warwick Arts Centre much earlier this year with your world-famous tour. What have you kind of changed from that tour to this tour? I mean, has there been kind of a shift in your style, would you say?
I don't say there's a shift in style, but obviously it's going to be packed with some new material, new observations. The main thing that's happened, of course, is all the events around the world, which reminds me of a really crazy circus. And, the masses, we just want to be entertained, don't we? We want to take our foot off the gas and relax of an evening. And like Marie Antoinette is alleged to have said, we don't want bread anymore, let's eat cake.
And of course, the tour is called Bread and Circuses. In the description, some of the things that you kind of rant about the New World is, of course, the new lineup on Bake Off. Was that something that was particularly close to your heart?
Well, again, it's just that the title in itself is just tongue in cheek, and I don't talk about Bake Off particularly, but only because oh dear, excuse me, this cold is really hitting
the cold's
me down.
affecting.
Yes, the Bake Off is the biggest story of the year. Everyone's anticipating its return on TV, and its transition to a new network has proved to be very successful. But, my thing is, when did we all start focusing on baking? Who's got time to bake in this day and age? We see so many kind of reality shows at the moment, and, they're all probably just entertaining distraction techniques for all the craziness that I've said that's going on right now.
And of course, you tried your hand at baking, didn't you, in the celebrity special of Bake Off? How was that?
It was horrendous. I did it because my mum loved the show, and I remember as a kid doing home economics at school. We made lots of interesting things, very technical things like Rice Krispies covered in melted chocolate. I mean, that was easy. And then when it came to doing the Bake Off show myself, I thought, I haven't baked ever, so let's give this a try. And one of the things I was asked to do was a chocolate cake. Now, I like chocolate, I like cake. I've never combined the two myself. And I had no idea that if you melt down chocolate, it burns off the sugar, apparently. So I didn't add any sugar in my cake. And Mary Berry's face on tasting said cake will tell you a lot about how I did.
I bet that was quite a sight.
It was quite a sight. A sight that I don't particularly want to see again.
Now, of course, I mentioned that you were at the Warwick Arts Centre, of course, earlier this year. I think a lot of interviews when it comes to tours, will kind of ask, is it different performing in different venues? And, do you enjoy coming back to Warwick? Is there a different vibe you get, would you say, from different parts of the country? Is that actually true?
That is actually true, There is a sense that the northern, further north you go in England, because the tradition, I guess, of working men's clubs and stand-up comedy, there's a bit of an expectation up there that, you better be funny. The further south you are, there's a kind of thing, they get saturated with, like, comedy clubs and theatres and etc., that there is more of an expectation of, go on then, make me laugh. So although the material will be essentially the same, you do kind of get some snippets of life in various cities and towns that can only be relevant to those areas. So yeah, I'm always loving the fact that we get to go and travel the UK and see and hear different things. So yeah, Warwick earlier the year, and when I was there wasn't this was it Goose Theatre?
Yes, it's brand new.
Right, I'm looking forward to finally the Golden Goose when I return, and hopefully it'll live up to its expectations.
They did a poll with kind of trying to decide what the name of the new theatre would be, and there's such a massive geese population on campus that they opted with that name. So it was by referendum.
But why doesn't that surprise me that students would come up with that title? Nothing as simple as, Warwick Student University Theatre. Nothing simple as that. Let's go for, it's Christmas nearly, so come on, let's go for a theme that's only going to be relevant in this period.
Now, moving on to Warwick as a venue very quickly, I mean, is it, being a university place, is there, because obviously it's actually in Coventry, but is there an added buzz when it comes to a university place? I mean, what's it like performing to students?
Well, I've got to say, usually it is, but for the first time I ever played that venue, I assumed it was only open to students, but apparently it's not. So you've got to bear in mind that it's not just the students that will be there, it's also open to the general public. So what you'll find, you'll get a great demographic of people sort of near my age and older, and of course the younger generation, who I enjoy reminiscing about the things that they know nothing about. But to remind them that, they still owe us a huge gratitude, because we did go through things that hopefully they'd never have to go through.
Now, more generally now, Stephen, obviously with your comedy, you joke about race a fair bit. Have you become a bit more conscious in terms of where the line is in terms of offence? Not obviously just in terms of that topic, but in terms of comedy topics more broadly. And would you say that's impacted a lot of your material?
I would say that a lot of comedians, good comedians over the last 30-odd years, have been very aware of where their imaginary line should be. But if you handle any subject with, creativity, sensitivity, respect to a certain extent, I think you can joke about anything. What has happened, I think the shift has been the advent of social media, where there are people who are just prepared and ready to take offense at anything. They hear one word out of context, they'll jump on it. They hear a story second or third hand, and they're on it. And that's the problem, you see. If you're not there at the venue, at the theatre, watching the show, hearing stuff for yourself, you could hear something in a Chinese whisper style that bears no relation to what actually happened. And there's an army of people now who are just ready, who are ready to get offended. Or the other side of the line is those people who complain that the world is too PC. Everything's too PC now. And I always challenge those kind of people, because I say, what do you actually mean by that? Do you mean that we all know when PC is being a bit ridiculous? We all know that. Certain nursery rhymes you can't sing in school, all that sort of stuff. But if you're actually talking about, not being able to joke about anything, because, in the wrong hands, you just can't joke about anything. And, timing is key. There was a time, obviously, 40, 50 years ago where, racist, sexist, homophobic jokes were rife, and it was commonplace. But now people have got a bit, you have to think before you speak. And I think that's what we do in real life. But then again, as I say, because of social media, everyone now has a voice. And people, I've seen some shocking things that people have written online, and you kind of go, really? Would you say that in open company? Where did you draw the line?
And have you received kind of any of that? Have you ever had anyone questioning some of the topics you're talking about, or?
Not particularly questioning. I did have someone once say to me, "Oh, you talk about race too much." I'm like, to be honest, the kind of stuff I talk about is the stuff I know about. There's no good, for example, me going to do shows in Northern Ireland and start talking about the troubles and the political system there, where I don't know enough about it, because I'd look like a bit of a fraud. But I talk about things that have happened to me through personal experience and try and make them funny. I do appreciate there are different styles of comedy out there. If you want to see someone just do observational, funny stuff, and they've got no particular thing they really want to talk about that means anything to them, that's fine. If you want to see a political comedian, rant about politics from the right or left or the centre, that's fine. If you want to just see, some sort of slapstick, or one-liner comics, that is totally fine. There's a whole lot of us out there who's treading the boards. Take your pick. You don't have to find someone that you think is offensive. Don't go and watch them.
You said then that different comedians are kind of trying to work out or are discovering where their line is. Now, obviously, James Corden got in trouble for making jokes about Harvey Weinstein quite soon after the allegations came out. It didn't go down too well, and I think his popularity people seem to be not as keen on James Corden after that. Would you say there's some topics that you can't joke about at all? And would you also say that people have a right to kind of judge James Corden for the jokes he made?
Well, I'm not particularly sure about whether his popularity has gone up or down. Couldn't say anything about that. But what he has done in the positive way is gone and done quite a successful show in America, and it's raised his profile over there tenfold. And he's flying the flag in some respects for British comedy. Maybe some ill-judged remarks at a certain time, or the joke didn't quite work. That happens. But, you've got to be aware of where you are and the timing of an issue that's quite sensitive, and the audience. There's no point going to, do a joke about, again, when the whole Weinstein thing broke, it was quite a big deal, and nobody quite knew the extent or whatever. So that's a very delicate subject, and if you're not going to tackle that well, then best steer clear. But I really don't think with the right intention behind the joke and a well-crafted joke, no subject is off limits.
Mm. More generally about touring now, obviously we've spoken about kind of the internal different venues within the UK, but you do a fair bit of your stand-up comedy abroad, and particularly in Australia. How do they kind of receive stand-up comedy compared to the UK, particularly with Australia?
Do you know what? The Australians are a very gregarious bunch. There is, if you're going to go down stereotypes, the weather there is quite good. They seem to be open-minded and spirited in certain respects. So, and they can laugh at themselves. I've gone to Australia, for example, and I've discussed in a comedic way, the history of the country, and kind of reminding some people, that what is the notion of being an Australian, for example. So I think if you're not just going to stand there berating people, then you can say anything. And also, what I don't do when I do shows in Europe or America or Australia, New Zealand, I don't rely on local colloquialisms from the UK. I will make a concession by listening to what's going around in that country, the political mood of the country, if there's been a big news story or something, and then I'll have my outsider's take on it. And they kind of appreciate that. I'm a guy from the UK, born and bred, parents from Nigeria. So in those countries, they're quite interested into hearing what I've got to say.
Now, of course, you've been doing comedy for so many years now, and I personally became a massive fan after you did the Royal Variety performance. Out of interest, do you still get nervous, would you say, with different venues and performing in front of certain people, or has that kind of gone with time?
I think you always need that nervous energy for the adrenaline, and doing something like the Royal Variety, for example, which is is a big show. It's not a natural comedic audience, I've got to say. There's certain protocol because people who have paid a lot of money for charity, and it's all black tie, and it's filmed for a TV outing, and there's compliance rules and regulations for TV, etc., of stuff you can and can't say, and you're also given a very short set time, and you've got to get the audience. So in that respect, you get very nervous. Or if I'm doing a live show, a big show, or on TV, you do get quite nervous because you can't stumble on your words. You've got to make it natural. When I'm doing my own touring shows, I'm 50% there because the audience have come to see me. So therefore, there's a vested interest. And also, I've got time over 2.5 hours to work an audience, do longer routines, and nail them. And, language or content is entirely up to me. So that's a luxury. So every gig will be different, but the nerves will definitely still be there. I think if you start taking your foot off the gas and relying on the fact that you've done it for so long, so it should be okay, then you're on a very slippery slope.
And the royal family, in particular, obviously Prince Harry, are in the news quite a lot at the minute. What was it like meeting them?
Again, quite surreal. I'm not particularly a royalist, or anything like that, but, they command a huge respect. They were very pleasant, and I can imagine, having met a few of them over the years, that, they are very funny people as well. We just see a particular side of them, and, I know personally they can take a joke, and they do joke amongst themselves.
Mm. Moving away from comedy now, just very quickly, I wanted to ask you, I remember you did your series for Channel 4 a few years ago called Battyman, about black people and homophobia. And just out of interest, I mean, have you seen a shift since this, would you say? Do you think homophobia, and in particular with regards to black people, I mean, has the situation, would you say, got worse or marginally better? I'm just curious as to what you've kind of found since the documentary.
Personally, I have found, as the years go by, that things do get better as we chip away at all the negativity of the past and certain language that was used in the past, particularly at schools or football grounds, and all these initiatives that are going around, making people more aware. So, and as more and more people are visible and there are more sort of rules and laws and other situations in place to allow people to be comfortable and out as who they are, then I think it's a good thing. If we have intolerance issues, then I think it's the best thing to do, because there are people out there who live in very, remote parts of the country, remote parts of the world, who are still suffering from very many different reasons and issues, and they need to feel safe. I think the biggest thing at the moment is the trans debate. That's kind of, everyone's kind of on edge about, this whole thing about using the bathroom of the same sex you were born with, all sorts of different ideologies. And my main thing, my whole own stick, is that, as far as I'm concerned, one doesn't have to go through trials and tribulations yourself to have empathy for your fellow man. You don't have to understand what they're going through to be, to have a bit of a kind heart and sympathy.
Mm. And lastly, Stephen, just before we let you go, have you got any advice to up-and-coming comedians? We've got quite a prominent comedy society here at Warwick. Have you got any advice for them?
Well, the only thing I would say is that when I started, it was really quite fun, because a lot of my friends came to my gigs, and my friends know me. They know my sense of humour. So I was kind of resting on my laurels again, because I thought I knew everything. So you should get your material, your 5 minutes material, try it out, not just in front of your friends or university colleagues, because they'll be very encouraging. Try it out in different clubs around the country, around the city that you live in, and just test it out in front of strangers, and then build that confidence. A lot of it is confidence, a lot of it is timing and all that kind of technical stuff that you need to learn, and you'll find your own true voice. It may take a while, but keep at it and you'll find your voice.
Stephen, just before we let you go, have you got 1 minute to play a quickfire round with us very quickly?
A quickfire round, okay. Do I need to sit down or stand up?
I think maybe stand up.
All right, I'm standing as we speak.
Fantastic, right. Just a few questions to get to know you a little bit better, Stephen. Favourite TV series?
Favourite TV? Malcolm in the Middle.
And favourite character?
Malcolm.
Favourite food?
Oh, spaghetti bolognese.
Favourite comedian?
Oh, difficult question. At the moment, Chris Rock.
Favourite Christmas song?
Oh,
or do you hate them all?
Do you know what? I'm not really a big Christmas person, but Good King Wenceslas looked out.
Favourite band / singer, more generally?
Oh, band or singer. Favourite singer, I would say maybe Luther Vandross. Favourite band, oh, this is going to be one from the past, 5 Star.
Favourite venue in the UK?
Oh, that's a really good question. Favourite venue, the Royal Albert Hall.
And finally, the worst event of 2017, in your opinion?
Oh, the worst event. Oh, my goodness. Which one does one pick from? Well, for me, I think again, okay, I would have to say Donald Trump's tweets. Which are just so many, and what it's done is he's written his own jokes, so therefore we can't do them, and there's no point just repeating what he said, because that's not you writing a joke. That's what I'd say.
Brilliant. And very lastly, Stephen, when I said I was interviewing you, one of my friends actually said that they remembered something that apparently you said in one of your gigs, that you used to try and get out of work by ringing your boss with a thick Nigerian accent and pretending to be your dad. Is this true?
That is absolutely true.
Can we have an example?
An example right now. Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Is that the radio station?
It is indeed, yes.
Can I speak to the personnel manager?
Yes, yes, me.
Hello, you. Hello, Mr. Me. I'm ringing on behalf of my son, Stephen. He's very, very sick. He's very poorly. He cannot get him out of bed today, but he'll definitely be in tomorrow.
That's brilliant.
And you know what? It never worked.
It never worked.
Of course not. I thought I was being clever and sly, but no.
Amazing. Well, Stephen K Amos, thank you very much for joining me. Remember, you can go and see Stephen's tour. It's coming to the Goosenest Theatre in the Warwick Arts Centre on Thursday, the 18th of January. It's Bread and Circuses.
My name is Stephen K. Amos, and you're listening to Raw.